Okay, everyone, I wanted to welcome you to our Bucks and Montgomery County's History Day Judge Training webinar. Today we'll be discussing many different areas of the judging process from the beginning to the end. And at the end of the webinar, we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. You can type them right in and I'll answer them in real time. And also at the end, at the completion of the question session, you'll be receiving immediately a survey about the webinar itself. So we would appreciate any feedback that you can give us. This is our first webinar, so any feedback to improve is fine and dandy with me. After this webinar is completed, we will be uploading it onto our website, which is at nhdbucksmont.org. We'll upload it to the judge page on our website, and then we'll also be uploading it to our Mercer Museum YouTube channel. Okay, so moving forward. Many of you are new, but some of you may also know, those that are kind of alumni of the judges for Bucksmont, know a little bit about History Day, but we're going to go over basically what is National History Day, and it's a highly regarded academic program for elementary and secondary students. It's conducted at the school, regional, and state levels in conjunction with the Kenneth A. Baring National History Day program. Students can do individual and group projects, and eventually, if they do well at the regional level, which is what we are, they move on to states and even into the national level. National History Day supports and reinforces writing and reading and research skills. Actually, I think the big winner of History Day itself is the process. It's not necessarily whether you win or you move on to another level. I really think it's the process and the research that is the most important. Most students, History Day year begins in September, but they also started with a school competition. Not every school has a competition to move them to the regional level. Some do, and some choose other ways to be able to move their students on to the regional level. The program gets students out of the classroom and into the world of the historian. They have to track down information about historic people and events. The research leads to new insights and original conclusions that students share in their exhibits, their documentaries, their websites, papers, and performances. A little history about how Mercer Museum got involved in History Day. We began as the regional coordinators for the Bucksmont Regional Competition in 1996. But how National History Day started as a whole is it began in April of 1974 on the campus of Case Western Reserve University. It was the idea of a history professor there, David Van Tassel, who was worried about the decline in the humanities in general and history in particular in America's schools. And so today, thousands of students participate and go to the national level, and the contest has every state participating, including the District of Columbia, Guam, American Samoa, and international affiliates all across the world. So the contest progression as History Day goes is it begins on the school level. They move on to regionals, and from there, where it says affiliate, they move on to the state level. And then if they do well there, placing there, they move on to the national level. So how the contest itself works. There are 5 main categories in this competition. The students can write a paper, which is really for only individuals, websites, performances, documentary, or exhibit. And an individual obviously is one, but the group of students for the categories of website, performance, documentary, and exhibit can be from 2 to 5 students. There is a junior division, which is grades 6 through 8, and then the senior division is 9 through 12. The students' process, as I mentioned, begins in September and ends in June if they move on to the national level. And the progression of their research project starts with choosing a topic. And then they do research, create a thesis, analysis, they create their entry, and then they participate in their school contest or move on to regionals. But one of the important things that they need is feedback, which is where judges come in. Many schools have NHD written into their curriculum, and some only have a handful of students participate, so it varies. Last year we had 713 students, so we maxed out our space for students to be able to participate. So this year we did institute a policy and had a limit of participation in the school. So it's 2 projects per school per category in order to be able to grow our competition. We do want growth, but we don't want unlimited growth so that it excludes any new schools that want to participate in the future. Most students, as I said, begin in September and move on to June, and then we need judges. So the judge's role, your role, is to examine students' projects, interview the students to clarify understanding about their project and what they know about their project, evaluate them based on a rubric with specific criteria and parameters. The project evaluation is the single most important aspect of the contest, and so we need to get it right. And you control whether we get this right. The ideal judge is kind, fair, thorough, clear, encouraging, positive, consistent, and is a team player because you will be on a team. For some of you, the greeting and interactions that you have with the student and the comments that you make on their judge form will be what they're going to get. Most of them aren't going to move on, so making sure that they have a good experience whether or not they're moving on is really, really important. They've worked hard on their projects. Our expectations of you. You have to be kind and put the kids at ease, remain objective, be consistent with every single entry, assume that every entry is the work of the students, and you can ask them if you're unsure about that. Honor the anonymity of all entries, and remember that every project has redeeming qualities. It really does. Sometimes it's hard to find, but we have to find at least one thing. Provide the positive feedback that you wanted to receive as a student. So think about what it was like, when you were a student. I'll be constantly reinforcing the positive comments on the judge forms as we go along, so bear with me. The top 6 student expectations of judges, they want your full attention. They want you to at least act like you care about the work they put into it. They really need to be put at ease. They are terribly nervous, and they want you to ask them questions. And on their forms, they really want to know how they can improve, whether they're moving on to the next level and they have the opportunity to make some updates to their project before they move on, or if they're not moving on, they need to know how they can do better next year. The theme this year for History Day is Exploration, Encounter, and Exchange in History. With your judge confirmation, you probably got the theme sheet on this, so you make sure you read it carefully. It varies from year to year how they want the students to incorporate the theme into their project. Some years, as in last year, it was leadership and legacy in history. They were required to have a relation to both leadership and legacy. This year, the students do not need to address exploration and encounter and exchange. They can just do one. If they do all 3, does it make it better? Maybe, but it's not required. Students must explain the relationship, however, to the theme and its significance in history. So they have to somehow be able to do that, whether they're doing exploration or encounter or exchange or all 3. They have to be able to explain it, and it has to be able to show in their work. So exploration, what they mean by this is new lands, fields of science, the need for transportation, movement, a new idea or a theory. As far as encounter goes, interactions between people, animal, plants, and things of the like. Exchange, physical, like new technology, but also the sharing of ideas or beliefs or customs. So that's basically how they broke down the different areas for us in the theme. They should prove the relationship to the theme. Some will be more creative than others. The contest rules. NHD has rules, just like for anything, and there's rules for every entry and every category. Just when we send out packets, we'll either email them to you when you get your category assigned. At this time, you don't have an assigned category, but in a few weeks, you'll be receiving your packet, which will include judging instructions. So when we do send you those, make sure that you read the instructions and also the rules section of all of those particular categories. If you've judged previously, always consult the instructions. It's always good for a little refresher. And why do we have these rules? Because sometimes there are so many projects that you're comparing apples to apples. So it's really important to know what the rules are and know what the different areas are for all entries. That way you're going to have to weed them out. So it's really important because sometimes it's a really hard job. Now the category breakdown is exhibits, performances, papers, websites, and documentaries. And we'll begin talking about exhibits. For exhibits, there's a size limit, and I'm not going to go into the numbers here, but we do provide tape measures. Really, the tape measures during the March 19th competition. You'll be able to eyeball it and know if there's something amiss. So there's tape measures available. The work limit is 500 student-composed words, and they can have media along with it, but it can be no longer than 3 minutes, and it has to be controllable by the judge or the viewer of the exhibit itself. And credits of the visual sources are required. So they have to make sure that any images or anything that they have like that for sources, they have to have the sources listed there. I'm going to show you kind of what it's going to look like when you go into the field house. That's where our exhibits are at Ursinus. It's the Floyd Lewis Bakes Field House and Gym. This was last year's map, and all those little rectangles are tables, and there's 2 exhibits to every table. Now last year, keep in mind that we had 713 students, and a lot of them were exhibits. This year, we don't have quite as many, so it won't look all this crowded, but this is what you'll be getting as part of your packet when you check in on the morning of March 19th. Another thing about exhibits, which is something that a lot of judges think is required, but is not. Exhibits and websites, as a matter of fact, are not required to have a timeline. They are helpful, and they do help the project itself. So if they have one, it certainly can be used as a positive, for their scores. But it is not required. Performances. Performances have a time limit. So they have 15 minutes for setup. They actually don't. That is not right. They have 10 minutes for setup, 10 minutes for their performance, and 5 minutes for takedown. And in between the takedown time is the time that you have to ask questions. So the interviewing of performances in documentaries is a little bit more limited than, say, that for a website, a paper, or an exhibit. They will have an introduction. They introduce their title and their students' names. Costumes, obviously they can have costumes for this particular category. They can be rented, they can be purchased, they can be handmade. They do not have to look like they're very expensive. They just have to be creative. Don't take time away when you're a performance judge due to laughter or applause. Please make sure you factor that in. If their performance gets laughter or applause, remember to keep that in mind. And performers, though, they should have some kind of stage presence for their performance. They only have 10 minutes, so they only have a short amount of time to really show what their project means and how it relates to the theme. Papers and websites. Papers and websites are read and reviewed ahead of time, so we have 2 separate days for judging of papers and websites. The paper judging is taking place on March 2nd here at the Mercer Museum in the evening, and websites are also taking place here on March 9th from 6 to 8 p.m. The papers and websites are mailed, websites are emailed out to the judges. And they get to view them ahead of time and then meet here with the other judges who have also viewed or read the same material. And then they get together and work on a consensus to try to find the winners of those particular categories, much like it's done for exhibits, performances, and documentaries. The day of the contest, there's a second phase of the paper and website category. The day of the contest, they get interviewed, and these interviews may or may not affect the ranking that the judges felt during the judging process on March 2nd or 9th. The interview isn't the most important part of their project, but it definitely can change the scores a little bit depending on who's better at being interviewed than maybe another. Documentaries also have a time limit. It's 5 minutes setup, 10 minutes for the film, and then take down for 5 minutes, in which that would be the time for you to ask questions. They would speak, meaning to introduce their students. The production itself has to be student narrated. The students need to have done the interviews. They run the equipment. They need to have produced it and edited themselves. The end credits are required, but they must be readable. And there's two things that students tend to do. The credits sometimes go by so fast that you can't even see anything, or they're so small that you can't see them. So just be mindful of that, and it might affect their overall score compared to someone else who did it the correct way. There can be no judge or audience participation, so keep that in mind. It should be similar to something that you see on PBS or the History Channel, that type of format. And with documentaries, you also have to keep in mind that the room's going to be dark, and you need to stay awake. So staying awake is important. Documentaries are always a tricky category because at Ursinus we always have technical difficulties. We will have tech support as we have in the past. Last year we had very good technical support, and they do provide us a telephone number for the documentary judges in the room so they can call if they're having difficulty. We are doing something a little different this year. If you were here in previous years and judged documentaries, this year we do have MacBooks, and we have purchased converters, because Ursinus is not Mac compatible. We will have those available in all the rooms in the event that they're needed. So we'll give that a try this year and see how that works for us. Technology is always interesting, so we try our very best. So with judging, there's judging teams, and teams of 2 or 3 judges. 2 is okay. 3 judges is ideal. In our case, a lot of the times it's 2 judges because our contest has been so large in the past. Each category has a lead judge, and then each category also has a group of assistant lead judges. And what's the lead judge's role? To achieve consensus. It is their job to lead their group to find a consensus, to get the ranking of all the projects in their particular category. It's my little diagram here. We're going to use junior group exhibits as an example. So in each category, there's a lead judge. Because there are usually a lot of exhibits, there's different assistant lead judges. Each group where you see assistant lead judge will have other judges with them. They will each be judging a group of different exhibits. Once those exhibits are judged, the assistant leads take the results of their judging and meet with a lead judge, and that's where they begin to hash out who is first, second, and third. And then the lead judge is responsible for filling out the judge ranking sheet and submitting that to History Day staff, and that is what gets read at the award ceremony. All the judging forms and category ranking sheets must be turned into Judge Central no later than 12:15 p.m. We've had judges in categories in the past that have failed to do this in a timely manner. I know that time is an issue, but What this means, if we don't get the ranking sheets by that time, then at 1:15 we have no awards for a particular category, and that means that there's a lot of disappointed students. So that's why it's very important that we have those all those ranking sheets in a timely manner so that we can present the students with their awards. Evaluating the entries. There's 3 areas for evaluating entries: historical quality, relation to theme, and clarity of presentation. For historical quality, they're looking for the accuracy, the thorough research, primary sources, making sure their presentation is balanced, and thoughtful analysis. Thoughtful analysis is really important. This isn't a book report. This is an investigation. This is research project. It's not just a report. And that's 60% of their score. Relation to theme is relation to so that it's adequately explained. It has to be adequately explained within their work. Their project should be able to stand alone. Even if they can explain it in the interview process or the questioning process, it still needs to be evident within the confines of their project itself. You're looking for historical context and historical significance, and that's 20%. Clarity of presentation is 20%. It means effective and creative, clear and free of errors and distractions, and use of the equipment. And one of the important things when evaluating entries, especially with exhibits and performances, but be aware of cute points. Okay, you have to consciously look past the cute points and delve a little deeper, because cute is great, but we have to make sure that this project has some substance and is doing what they need to do. Cute is good, but there needs to be more. The interview process with each student is different in the different categories, but questioning is basically the same. You need to be consistent, greet your students in the same way. It's really important to treat everyone, each entry the same or very similar. Be aware of your bias related to particular topics. Go into this treating each project if it's the first time you ever heard of this information. It's all new to you. And remember to stick to the schedule. And also check your body language and facial expressions, and that's very important. They read into everything. And then also very important, taking notes as you go. There are a lot of projects, so you want to make sure that you take notes on each one. As far as evaluating the entries and the judge forums, which we'll go over in a little bit, but important to talk about comments. When you're giving certain rankings on the judge forum, you have to explain your rankings through constructive and positive comments. You have to make sure you phrase those comments clearly, explain how they can improve so they can be more successful, and also expect quality, but at the same time, you have to remember you're evaluating young students. They're just beginning this process. They're not graduate students, so you have to remember that. Not saying that you shouldn't expect a quality project, but just keep that in mind. And remember, you're going to be deliberating together and reaching a consensus together. Why we're evaluating these entries. It's our goal to encourage the students to keep learning by providing constructive feedback in a positive environment. And it's judges' goal to help us do this. Judges are the face of History Day. They're very important. It's a judge's job to leave the students with a positive feeling. This is just something I acquired from a National History Day training for myself, and I thought I would share it with all of our judges. Very interesting thoughts versus constructive comments. Sometimes what we're thinking, we have to be mindful in what we put down in the comment section. So, for example, this project needs a lot of work. Good comment to that is you're off to a good start and consider strengthening your project by. I find that line very helpful to me when I'm filling out a judge form. Consider doing this. Try this. Have you ever thought about this? Performance is not your thing, but your research is strong. You can find a way to word that. Your courage at creating performance is admirable, but another category might demonstrate your research better. So you can read those at your will there, but there's all different ways to be able to say things. And there's, as I've said before, there's at least one good thing in the project. Find it. Find it. The procedures for each entry, as I put up here, number 1, announcements, no photos, no cell phones. That's more for performances, but if the students that you are talking to have an exhibit and they're on their phone or they're looking at their phone, I would tell them to put those phones away. It is not the time to be on them. Make sure you introduce yourself. Quickly read the process paper. When I say quickly read it, you might want to read just the research section of that, because sometimes time is of the essence. So the process paper does have a small area where they talk about their research, and that might be the area that if you didn't have time, that would be the one thing you should read before moving on to ask the students questions. After the process paper, ask the students to begin, whether it's their documentary or performance, or begin viewing the exhibit from that. Remember to keep the time. It's a little easier to keep time in performance and documentary because they have to be 10 minutes long. That's the maximum time. I would do the same for an exhibit. I would take 10 minutes to view each exhibit. And then at that time you can ask questions, and then make sure you thank the students and make sure that you take notes as you go, once again, and to stay on schedule. And for papers and websites, you skip 3 and 4 because they are just having their interview. Let's see, moving on. Here's some examples of interview questions, things to ask the students when you're questioning them. How did you choose this topic? What was their most important discovery when researching their project? What was your most important source? What is the most important point you were trying to convey about your topic? Make sure you ask about group contribution. I always do that because sometimes it's kind of evident who did most of the work when you're talking to them. How did your primary sources help you? Which one was the most significant primary source? Why is this topic significant in history? How does your topic relate to this year's theme? So those are the type of questions that you can ask. A student's answers during this process are important, but not the most important part of the project. Their project needs to be able to stand alone. This part of the process just allows them to share their overall understanding of their research and convey that to you. Interview don'ts. Don't lecture the students about their topic. If you happen to know a lot about a certain topic, pretend that you don't. Don't lecture them about that topic. You can always mention things in the comment section of the judge form. Don't make any comments about how they did overall. Don't say things like, that was the best project I've seen all day. Do not offer suggestions for improvement during the questioning process. That's what the judge forms are for. And don't let your bias about a subject cloud the judging process. Teachers, parents, and students are all ready to read far more into your comments and facial expressions and body language than you intend. So that's why it's important to kind of, now teachers and parents will not necessarily be there at that moment, but students will. The process paper. This is a must for the performance, documentary, exhibit, and website categories. This is a paper that has a 500-word limit. It talks about how the students went about their research and creation of their entry, how the topic relates to the theme. Try to read each one, but as I said, if time is an issue, try to focus on the research description of the process paper and the sources that they used. This would be the part that I would read moving forward, because I think research is the key to the History Day project. They also are required for an annotated bibliography, which is the heart of the project. It really is. Let's see. It tells how the work was used in producing the projects. It needs to be divided into primary and secondary sources and labeled appropriately. The annotations should explain how the source was useful. For websites, these materials, the process paper and the bibliography, must be integrated into the site. And for papers, which requires no process paper, the annotated bibliography must be attached to the paper and included with either footnotes and endnotes. If a student does not hand you these things, or they're required to hand every judge a copy, if they don't have enough copies for every judge, it does not disqualify them from the competition. It should be used when evaluating and comparing their projects, however, because there might be another project that is equal to theirs, but they handed in and presented their annotated bibliography and process paper copies to everyone. The number of sources in the bibliography should fit the topic, and the sources should be balanced between primary and secondary sources. As far as primary and secondary sources are, materials directly related to primary sources, materials directly related to a topic by time or participation, and secondary sources, materials about a topic usually based on interpretation of primary sources. That's just a little synopsis. The paperwork itself. What should the students be handing the judging team? They will be handing the judging team yellow judge forms, one for each judge. The forms will be yellow with a red number in the upper right-hand corner. This red number is the school number, and the reason for the school number is so that we can get these judge forms back to the correct teacher in the correct school, so the students get these forms back. Number 2 is the change of title form. This form is hot pink, and we'll show you a copy of this. This is used if the students have changed their title or category prior to attending the competition. This paper itself is just to let the judges know if the title is different than what is noted on the schedule that you have, or if they changed categories and it's not on your schedule at all. So they need to hand you that so that you can notate it on your schedule. And they also need to hand you copies of the annotated bibliography and process paper, with the exception of papers and websites. The judge forms that you'll get that you need to turn in are yellow, as I stated. We will have a lot of white judging forms, so you can use those to make notes or fill out, if you want to practice. We have a lot of those, but the yellow form is what gets turned in to the final turn in with their judge ranking form. So we need the yellow sheets. Turning in your paperwork. As I said, paperwork for all categories has to be turned in by 12:15. Judging starts at 9 a.m. Most judging is usually over by 11:30, so there isn't a lot of time. We have to be out of Ursinus by 2 p.m. That's our contract with them. So what you'll be turning in when you do turn in your paperwork is the lead judge will hand in the category ranking forms. This, I would really suggest doing the first, second, third first. Collaborate with the judging team, and everyone must sign the ranking form in your category. The lead judge will turn it in, and then they'll also turn in all of the yellow judge evaluation forms with process papers and annotated bibliographies. If you receive a project title form, which I talked about, just attach that to the judging forms with a paper clip. In this competition, pencils, scrap paper, and paper clips are the judge's best friend. Judging forms. This is what the judging form will look like. As you see, the judging criteria: historical quality, relation to theme, clarity of presentation, and then the rules compliance, whether they've handed in what they need to. And then on the right-hand side are where the comments go. At the top, you'll see that you need to circle whether they're a junior or senior project, and then their full project title. The school number will already be on there, so you will not have to worry about that. The change of title form will look like this. It's hot pink, and as you see, there's a space for the new title, the students' names, the change in title, and then if there's any absent students or any of those that dropped out. And then History Day staff will sign it, give it back to the student, and then the student will hand that to you when it's time for them to present their project to you. Here are some examples of good, excellent, and not so good judge forms. You see here, they did fill out the comments. It seems that some of their comments are in with the ranking. It kind of goes along. But if you're going to give a certain ranking as good or not or lower than others, you need to make sure that you explain why. These comments are positive, and the criticism are phrased constructively. And some of the specific criticisms are backed up with examples. But better would be that they need to write more about the other topics. What about the topic's relationship to the theme? Is it there? Is it not there? How could they have done it better? And then also, there should be a few more comments on this page. This is a great example of a judging form. There's plenty of comments. The comments support the check marks. The specific criticisms are constructed well. It reads kind of like an action plan for improvement. So that's what we want. We want them to be able to take this and use it, whether they're moving on or they're going to do another project for next year. This is an unacceptable evaluation form, and I've seen it many a time. These comments tell the student nothing about what he did or she did well or how they could improve. They're just flattery. Good job. Awesome. That doesn't help anything. Please don't provide actual rankings and tell the student they deserve an award. If you see up at the top, they get first place. No, do not do that. The judge here clearly thought that this entry was superior, but why? And was it done so well? I don't know. Is it flawless? And there's always room for growth. So I don't think any project is superior all the way down. Maybe it is. I've never seen one, but there always could be one. You never know. But important to put comments regardless. These comments aren't helpful or useful to anyone. There's one more form that you don't really have to worry about, but you will come across the issue of, in some of the group categories, you'll have a list of students, 5 students that are in this group, and only 3 are there. So you can question where the others are, and if they say that, they're at a soccer game, they do have permission. They don't all have to be at History Day on the 19th. It's not required, unless of course it's an individual category. Then of course they have to be there. But make sure that you tell them. Make sure you ask them if they filled out a no-show form. That's what make sure that they have done this. They should have done this. We usually ask them at the student check-in. Are all your members of your group here? And if they say no, we make them fill out this form. So they should have done it at student check-in, but it's always good to have a backup when you find out that not all the group members are there and presenting. The schedule for the day. Judge check-in is really early at 7:30, between 7:30 and 8 a.m. In your packet, you'll be getting the information of where to go and a campus map, so you'll know exactly where to go and what room to go to and what building. But it's between 7:30 and 8. There'll be breakfast there. There'll be coffee, bagels, pastries, and other breakfast delights for judges. The judge orientations will start at 8:15 a.m. and then judging begins at 9 a.m. At the judge orientation, you're dismissed in your teams. So since you don't know necessarily who you're teamed with, it's a good time to be able to meet that person, and you're dismissed together and kind of create a game plan. Also, judge ranking results, as I said a couple times, is at 12:15, and then the award ceremony is there's 2 of them. There's one for exhibits and then one for everything else in 2 separate locations. They start at 1:15 p.m. Judges aren't required to go to the award ceremony. You're perfectly welcome, but you do not have to stay. So deliberating with your team. It's really important to make sure you hold discussions until after all the projects have been viewed. if time is of the essence and you do have some alone time between the next group coming in, for a performance or documentary, let's say, you can talk about it a little bit, but it's really important that students don't hear you talking about it. I think the best way, and in my experience, is to start with who to eliminate and then work your way up. Consensus needs to be reached by each judging team, and the overall ratings must be relatively the same for each judge. This means on the form, you can't have one person that thinks the project's really great and then someone who marks it all the way on the other side, not so great. You have to talk to each other and fill out. It doesn't have to be exact. You don't have to have the exact markings. You just should be in the same ballpark. And you'll see when you have judge check-in, you'll find out whether you're a lead judge or an assistant judge or a judge. Usually lead judges and assistant lead judges are judges that have experience. I try to pair new judges with an alumnus of a history day so that you have someone that knows what to do and kind of will lead you in the right direction. But you'll find that out when you check in at judge check-in. It will be on your packet. You'll know who you are. Another thing is that all decisions are final. So once you hand in your judge ranking form, and this is marked onto our winners list, it's all final. So no one can come to me as far as students and teachers or parents, and I can change it. I can't change it at all, and nor would I want to. But just so that you know that all decisions are final. This is an example of the judge ranking form. The lead judge completes it, as I've said before, at the conclusion of judging your category. It says here it should be submitted to Corey Amsler and Judge Central in Olin Hall, room 104. I don't know if that will be the place this year. This is from last year, but you will definitely know before March 19th. You're going to be checking off the division, so junior, senior, individual, or group, and then the category that they're in, and then first, second, and third. Ties are not acceptable, so you're going to need to try really hard to find out who's the clear first, second, and third. And then all lead and assistant lead judges must sign the ranking form, and then that will be submitted to Judge Central, and then those scores will be noted and then given at the award ceremony. Disqualifications and infractions. There are no on-the-spot disqualifications for History Day. There are only a few things that are disqualifying offenses. One is plagiarism. Other is reusing an entry or any part of an entry from a previous year, or tampering with another student's entry. If you suspect any of these things, you need to let History Day staff know immediately, and we'll take care of that. And never inform them on the spot about rule infractions. Even if you're not disqualifying them, say nothing. We'll take care of it. So there are some common National History Day myths. I don't know why, but performances seem that they must have songs, and that is not correct. The performances don't have to have any music if they don't want to. And student-conducted interviews are essential. No, they aren't essential in any way. Are they helpful? Do they strengthen a project? Probably, but not required. And then glitz, as I said, or cuteness always wins, should not be the case. And there is no winning formula. There is no winning formula. Every project's different. Everyone approaches it. As long as they follow the rules, try to be creative, and have a strong research background, it's a strong project. So what will be in your packet? Okay. Your packet on the day of judge check-in, you will receive a project schedule, where you're supposed to go, the room, the agenda for the day, your judge badge, all campus maps and building maps, scrap judge forms, so the white judge forms that you can use to take notes on, general information about the day so that you have information. There's information about the Berman Art Museum, things like that. And also the lead judge packet will have the ranking form in it. All right. Well, now it's time for questions. So if anyone has questions, they can type them right in and I will answer them. No questions. All right. Doesn't seem like we're getting any questions. Well, this, as I said, as soon as we conclude this webinar, you'll be sent immediately a survey based on the information that we gave today. So if there's something that we can add to make it more helpful or even present it in a more helpful way, let us know. And you will also be able to view this on our website, nhdbucksmont.org, or on our Mercer Museum YouTube channel. So both those places. And of course, it'll be available to any judges that couldn't be here or listen to it live. Okay, so I want to thank you very much for supporting National History Day. We cannot do History Day without you, and we always need judges. And I can't thank you enough, and I really appreciate you volunteering your time. And the students surely will appreciate it too. So I want to thank you very much. And you can always email me or contact Caitlin, the National History Day Assistant, if you have any questions or concerns at all. So thank you very much.